What should women 50 and older do to avoid weight gain? What should they eat or not eat? Yeah, that's it.
Well, I can definitely touch on this because as I mentioned before, the initial protocol that healed me or reversed my lupus back in the day was a fat loss protocol. So I know some of you guys know my husband, Thomas Tadlock. His obsession coming out of his master's in exercise science was really, what is the optimal diet for human metabolism? Why is it some people have a slow metabolism or fast metabolism, they can gain muscle or lose fat and other people can't? And so he was obsessed with optimizing nutrition for the human body because it frustrated him that when he was getting his classes from his PhD professors and he'd say, what's the optimal diet for metabolism? They would go, I don't know, some high fat, low fat, high protein, low carb, everyone's different. And he'd go, what are you talking about? That's not science. Biologically, we are the same. There's very little different from human to human in terms of our mitochondria and other organelles and all of our different enzyme systems and nutritional requirements. So I have learned a lot about human metabolism. And what we learned together is metabolism is not only a measure of how quickly you can burn fat or build muscle, but how quickly you can recover from disease, how quickly you can repair your body. So metabolism is really a function of cellular health. So I don't really see aging as a cause for weight gain. It is that people become more malnourished over time, which then affects cellular function over time. So I'll give you an example of that. I learned in medical school that the kidney function goes down as you get older, and that's just normal, right? Just like we also learned that every prostate will eventually get cancer if the man lives long enough. But what I found doing my work is actually every person that I hypernourish, even if they're 80, their kidney function goes up even when it wasn't in failure. That I've had people in their 80s whose kidney function went up to normal when they came to me to deal with some other issue like their rheumatism. So we know that a lot of the issues people have is really malnourishment over time or doing things that damage the metabolism, right? So before I did this, I used to do, slim fast shakes and things like that in my 20s where I'd go, I want to fit in that dress for that party. So I'd, eat nothing and drink horrible stuff and I'd lose the weight. And then the moment the first bite of pizza hit my mouth, like my love handles would come out again, right? So we also damage our metabolism over time by malnourishment and abuse of the body. So what we do, and we have had a lot of women come to us and say, you know what, the reason I can't lose weight is because I'm 60, I'm having hypothyroid, and I'm postmenopausal. And those folks lose fat at the same rate as everybody else does when they hypernourish themselves and exercise. So when we replenish the nutrients that we're missing from the cells, and we add the right kind of exercise, because sometimes people don't do the right exercise with the right diet, right? They're eating they're doing like slow weights, but they want to lose fat. You got to do high intensity interval training or other things that get your heart rate up, right? So, when you hypernourish and add the exercise, you will get optimize your health, your organ function, right? And you will get that metabolism working again. And what we find over and over again is people say, yeah, I did this some people do it for fat loss, but then their organ function gets better. And other folks come to me because they're literally dying of organ failure and other problems, and all the fat falls off quickly too. So metabolism is a super interesting topic that's very poorly understood. But I've gotten lucky enough to live with someone who lives and breathes metabolism. And I think it gives a lot of hope because especially with women who are older, a lot of them have given up that it's possible for them to get a fast metabolism. I'm fitter at 45 than I ever was before in my 20s when I worked out every day, but I eat so much better and my body is so much healthier. My mom, for the first time in her life, got abs at 60 years old, postmenopausal, Hashimoto's, and she lived with us. So she got to do our program living with us. And she went from a size 12 to a size 4 in 4 months and got her first belly ring at 60 years old. So to show off her belly. So it is absolutely possible.
I think the problem is expectation. I think too many of us think that we're supposed to gain weight. We will eventually become hypertensive. We will develop diabetes and we'll probably end up in a nursing home. I think expectations are such that we eat in a way that doesn't nourish our bodies. And so I think the primary thing is that we need to change people's expectations about what is possible with their health. And when we do that, we can see changes. And people then become more willing to do those things. I mean, life becomes hard after a while. And one of the few pleasures in life is eating. We eat for all reasons. We eat when we're happy, we eat when we're sad. And to take that away from people and not have something that's equally satisfying becomes a real challenge. Changing someone's diet and how they live may work short term, but for the long term, people don't want to give that up. And that's a real issue that you have to evaluate with people. When the holidays come, how do you deal with that? When you go out to eat, how do you deal with that? All of those become really important issues when we're talking long-term sustaining weight loss, and what you need to do and how you can stay on board.
That's really important. I mean, that's one thing that I talk about a lot with folks, is that changing your diet is not just about knowing better, right? It's about addictions, traditions,
Absolutely.
self-esteem, and your environment and all those things. So a lot of it's interesting that oftentimes in order to get people to really switch with a change in lifestyle, I've got to work on their self-esteem. Like somebody asked me, how do I say no to dessert? That was in our smoothie shred group today. How do I say no to dessert? So, well, first of all, you decide that you are worth having the life you want, no matter what anyone else in the room is doing. 2, you let people know around you how important this is to you and ask them not to tempt you. People, if they don't know better, they're going to do that, right? And 3 is just say no, thank you, right? That you're allowed to have more. Like I could eat whatever I wanted, and I probably will stay healthy for a while because I'm so well nourished. But if you give me the choice between eating anything I could eat and risking being sick again, or eating the way I do now and having everything I want in the world, there's no competition. So a lot of it comes from here to say, I'm not missing out if I'm eating a salad versus a pizza. I am missing out if I am sick, disabled, and not able to do all the things I wish I could do. So it does take a whole lot of work here and here. And that's why those of you guys who know me, that's so much of what I do, because the nutrition's easy. It's getting this on board. That's the hard part,
And you find that so many people, when they become ill, they're willing. They're willing to change their diet, willing to do whatever it takes. And then when they feel better, they want to go back to the way things were. And that's the problem, because they see the past and our old ways of eating as optimal. There needs to be a change in the mindset where you now see that this is what it takes to stay healthy, and that it's not a punishment. It's not a negative. It's a positive.
It's kind of like smoking, right? I mean, when I was a kid, there was everybody smoked. All my parents' friends smoked everything, right? And my parents they quit smoking when the news about secondhand smoke came out. And they went, okay, we can't do that to her. We like her. Let's try stop, right? So they did that. But in the beginning, they were the annoying ones. All their friends were smokers, and they're going, you guys got to quit. You should go to our hypnotist. You should do this. We should quit smoking. They were the annoying, weird ones, but they stuck with it. And eventually all of them did too. And so it's okay to be weird. I always tell people, what's weird? Getting healthier as you get older. That's weird, right? Being disease-proof is weird. Not getting colds is weird. Be weird. I'm really weird. Be weird, right? But also know that just by living the way living the right way, you're going to inspire others along the way too. So, if a smoker had COPD or lung cancer and recovered, I would hope they wouldn't go, man, is it time to go back to cigarettes? I've been missing them. I didn't smoke for 2 months. I'm ready to go back to smoking. We got to start looking at the foods that got us sick, instead of looking at them romantically. Like, I can't wait to go back to that bad relationship, to say, thank goodness I'm out of that bad relationship. I can't wait to see all the better stuff to come. So again, it's all here.
And we have to think about the addictive quality of foods. I mean, with sugar and all those other additives that are placed in foods, and understand that our food is manipulated and contaminated. And so we need to optimize it in any way we can.